Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And welcome to this session on how to build dynamic dashboards and ensure they always work. My name is Sagar Kapoor. I'm a product marketing manager at Wisdom. And today it's my honor and pleasure to welcome the one and only Will Perkins. Will, welcome to the session.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just to introduce Will, he is an executive director at JP Morgan Chase, also a Tableau ambassador. So thank you, Phil, for all your contribution to the Tableau community. Also, I know some fun fact about Will. So he played rugby for 3 years in high school and then switched to be a cheerleader in a final year of his college. So that's interesting. I think we should talk to you more about it, Will. Also, he was a movie extra in the film Any Given Sunday and did TV extra on the show Walker, Texas Ranger. So, if you're looking for any acting tips, you know whom to reach out now. So, we have a packed agenda for you today. But before we go ahead and get started, some housekeeping items. If you have any questions during the course of this session, feel free to go ahead and put it into the chat. And yes, we will record this session and send it across to you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So what you will learn today. So you will learn from Will how to create dynamic executive dashboards. And then I will talk about how to increase trust and adoption of your executive dashboards. And lastly, we will go ahead and share resources in next step. So without further ado, I will hand over to Will to talk about creating dynamic executive dashboards. Will, over to you.
Thank you. And are you able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So, welcome. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm excited to be here. Trying to figure like if y'all have your business jargon bingo cards, I just want to make sure you've got I filled those up. So I'm excited to be here. You hear that in every presentation, but I truly am. I get to talk about my favorite thing, and that is building business dashboards. It may sound cheesy, but I truly love doing this because one, I get paid to do it. That's my job. And two, it helps people see and understand their data in a much quicker, more efficient way. So let's dive in. So again, my name is Will Perkins. I am an executive director at JP Morgan Chase. I work in the finance area. I've been at the firm for almost 10 years. I currently lead a global team of what I like to call solutions engineers. At the end of the day, the solutions that we engineer are dashboards, but we do more than just build pretty pictures. We work with the businesses to understand their needs. We take the data, we mold the data, we do our ETLs, all that stuff, and to build the final solution to really help them answer their questions. I'm really big about data culture and collaboration. So I helped start our first internal Tableau user group, as well as help with like the internal community grow from a data visualization perspective. And I will say that Tableau and Data Viz has really cemented my career. I have been on a very fast upward trajectory because I was able to ride the Tableau wave within the firm. I was an early adopter. It made sense to me. It clicked, and it has just opened up lots of doors. And I see lots of people having the same opportunities and doing it even faster nowadays. So it's a lot of fun. From a personal perspective, married, my wife and I have been married for 13 years, and we have two amazing, funny, sweet boys that are 5 and 2 years old. I'm a huge fan of soccer / football in the rest of the world. FC Dallas is my team. Unfortunately, we are out of the playoffs. Sad. I am a 3X Tableau social ambassador. So the past 3 years, I've been a Tableau social ambassador. And eu falo português, brasileiro, so I speak Brazilian Portuguese, and it's a lot of fun. I use a second language as a way to provide analogies to people as I go through data visualization, and it just really helps cement concepts and understandings that people might not have understood before. So Tableau Public is a phenomenal tool. If you haven't used it already, it is free. You can go out there, you can create a portfolio. Here's some example images from my portfolio. You can see it's very diverse. What I personally love about playing around with Tableau Public is, one, it's always up to date, so I can always try out the newest things. And two, I can experiment on ideas that I have that I might want to implement for business dashboards. So here's some things that I'll call out. Like the one over here on the bottom, on the left, I've got my band presentation that we worked on for this last year's Tableau conference, excuse me. This is my Iron Viz entry for this year. I did a Bluey dashboard. I love Bluey. It's a phenomenal thing. I have an example where I tried to recreate KPIs that Ryan Sleeper did in 2 worksheets. I was able to create 1 worksheet. Here are a couple of visit the days that I've had. Here is one where I tried to figure out how can I make an all value and a parameter work just by using parameter actions and stuff. So experimentation. But the one we're going to talk about today is what I have in my profile called the Superstore BYOD data structure. Build your own data, build your own dashboard, bring your own data, figure out whichever one you want to do. But this is the one we're actually going to dive into. So how did this come about? Well, a few years ago, we had a CFO say, I want to have a P&L, right? I want to have a profit and loss sheet, rows and columns. I want to have some charts next to it that show interesting KPIs, interesting things that we are concerned about. I want 6 charts, and I want the 6th chart to be dynamic. Anything I click on the P&L, I want that to change the 6th chart. And I also want to have different views. I want to have monthly views, quarterly views, yearly views, how are we doing against budget, et cetera, right? So this was pretty much the ask and the requirements phase. So what do? We take the request and we break it down into its individual pieces. What did the person say? What did they mean? And how did we interpret that as far as the team goes? Well, first, we have to design a P&L. Pretty simple. You got metrics, you have measures, you compare stuff. Is there budget? Is there outlook? Is there versus a prior year versus a point time? What's the baseline, et cetera? It's a giant crosstab, right? Very simple. 6 charts, okay? 6 charts, they said she has key items she wants to track, and there's no definition of what type of chart do we want, so kind of open-ended there. She wanted it interactive, so we have to make something that is intuitive, understandable from the end user perspective, and we have to be able to engage with other objects, be able to click here, does something there. It needs to be dynamic, right? Requesting 1 out of the 6 charts to change, why can't we just do all 6? If I can make 1 dynamic, why can't I make all 6? So added in some, I expanded that scope a little bit more. And then understanding what's a default view. The question is, she might have had in mind at that point in time, there are 5 key things that I am focused on right now. But what if 6 months from now, the economy changes, right? Something like COVID hits and you need to change those. Do I want to go in and adjust the dashboard and cause a lot of manual changes? Or do I want to keep that default view dynamic by something else, right? So just kind of think about all these things. Those were the 5 key pillars that I had to think about when building this dashboard, and that was success. Solve all those, you have success. So breaking this down, here's an example. Just pulled this image off of Google of an example P&L. So if you look at it, metrics are going down. You have scenarios going across tab. Then you have values. It's a pivot table. It's that simple. So when I think about this, well, metrics might have different things that they need for each line. Now, if I'm thinking about it crosstab and Tableau, you have one measure, you have a value, and you can only format that value a particular way. You format it one way, it formats all the values that way. So you can't have changes of like, here, some are dollars, some are percentages, some are this, some are that. Very hard. How do I sort these metrics, right? Because in Tableau, you have to think, well, Tableau can only sort in alphabetical, sort numerically, so ascending, descending, sort by the field. You can sort by another field, but you can only do that in the measures. So there's a lot of complexities there. How do I sort these things? Do I truncate the number, or do people expect this number is always shown in the millions and the thousands, et cetera? How many decimal points do I want to show? Do I want to show 0? Do I want to show 1? Do I want to keep it dynamic? How do I want to display negative values? Do I want the minus sign? Do I want up, down arrows? Do I want parentheses? A lot of things. Just how do I want to do this? So these are all the things that I'm taking into consideration when thinking about P&L. Historic data. It's got to exist in order to track different time frames. So I got to make sure that's there. Have different scenarios, right? So am I doing a comparison against budget? Am I doing over-unders, percent of total? All of those different things I need to understand. And I also need to ensure that those scenarios are sorted in the right order. So it makes a logical flow for the end user to read from left to right. And then, you know what? Different businesses have different expectations. So maybe we have an overall P&L. Maybe we have a P&L per line of business, and there's different metrics in those individual businesses that drive the overall, that the overall CFO might care, right? So you just have to think about personification in this perspective. Again, lots of things to go on. So how do I break down this additional piece into its different scenarios? When I think about building a dashboard, I have to think, what do I push upstream versus what do I have in a workbook? So first, these are all things that I need to have upstream. I need to be able to sort. I need to be able to have some way of sorting my information. I need to be able to have some way of defining my number type, define how many decimal points, add in the historical information, right? Go through all these. These are all upstream items, whereas these are going to be more downstream. How do I truncate it? Do I define the string? Do I define the negative signs? All that. Those are things that have to go into the Tableau world in order to make it easier and move forward. So how do I go on from there? Well, now I create a data source, right? It's a very, very, very tall data source. And in this data source, you'll see I've got view, I've got window title, I've got chart order, I've got chart type, right? Numerical value, and then a text value. Because when you think about alphabetical, you think A to Z. If I want something that is non-alphabetical order to go 1, 2, start in column 1, 2, 3, etc., I have to have some way of defining that. So I put in sort items for the different groupings of category, subcategory, time frame, chart, right? All those things I defined a numerical value to say, I want these in this area. So I hard code that upstream. I've got the categories, subcategories, time frame, all this stuff. Using this data structure right here, I'm able to go from data to this dashboard. That's really like how do I go from this to the dashboard? Well, let's break this down. Saw those column names. Well, where do they all go? Well, first of all, I've got a window group. So when I think about this, when I look at this dashboard, on the far left, I've got my P&L, very basic stuff that we've got. We've got the different columns, the different groupings that they ask for. But over on the right, this is really where the fun goes. So I've got a window, right? And inside that window, there's a lot of different charts going on, but this is a window group. Now the column in the data source window, that's where you're going to see bookcases, phones, segment, etc. We're using those values, so it's using those grouping. We've got time frame. We saw a column called time frame. We've got time frame right there, month, quarter, year. They're sorted correctly. Categories, chart types. Remember, all of these are just a column. So as you start thinking about how I pivot those data, this is exactly what I'm doing. I've pivoted these data elements to go into different pieces of this dashboard. And then even here on the far right, we saw the view. So now I've got a filter. So if I go back here, in the upper right-hand corner of the dashboard, I have a filter icon. So I can change the view to go from national, central, east, west, etc. Now, you'll notice some things. That's not necessary, or maybe you don't notice it. That's not an object. It's not a filter object. That's going to be a worksheet. We'll dive into that a little bit. I'll go through a quick demo. I want to make sure that I'm being good on time as well to kind of go through and showcase all the fun things about this. But dive into Tableau. So I'm going to come down here and make sure I've got Tableau open, and I do. So when I log into, or when I open up Tableau, you'll notice I've got all these different pieces. And in here is where you'll start seeing, well, if I open up this, I've got my worksheet here. When I click on this, using the power of Tableau, I'm using parameters and parameter actions and parameter updates. I found a phenomenal blog a while back from Mark Reed, who is a Zen master visionary, and he showed how to do a multi-select parameter in order to track, like, how do you do number of records, how do you do this, how do you do that. So I found that really interesting on driving and controlling parameters based on particular actions. So as I click on East, what I'm doing now is I'm updating the 4 key parameters that drive this dashboard. I have a parameter for, I'll drag this over here as this is updating. As you'll see, all of these different pieces are logged in. So supplies, I switched to East. You'll notice these charts changed. The chart types changed. So now East, they really wanted to focus on a table for supplies. They really wanted to focus on bar charts as storage. right? They're defining this. This is all their default view. Um, so if I go into this worksheet, I think I've got them all pulled up here. You can see the 4 key parameters that I use to drive this action, these actions, this information. So as you can see, they're kind of, it's a pipe, the name of the window, the type that is going in there, then another pipe. So I'm creating a grouping of each of those elements, and I control it to be 6 different elements. Max, it can be a 6, the min, it can be a 6. It's always going to look for 6 items. So as I update these parameters, I'm using functionality to do find in that field, where is that value, replace it with the value. It's a really cool thing. I will send the link to Mark's blog on how he did this, but without going into too technical of details, those 4 parameters are the same parameter. It's one parameter to drive all the time frames. So even though I've got 6 different time frames on this right side, I'm using one parameter. All those time frames are defined in that one parameter, which allows me to do something like have year defined in one part, month on others. I can change these just by clicking this action and change those views and make it very dynamic, make it to where the end user gets all the information they need. So this is now on a quarterly basis. I've changed my display dates, etc. It is a really, really cool interactive thing. Another thing that the business said was, well, you know what? Maybe I don't care about storage. I can come click on storage, got a little magnifying glass over here. I can take that off. Now I'm going to have an empty window on the bottom right-hand corner. And I can go in and then I can add, let's say I want to look at binders, really want to dig in on binders. So I can click on binders, and now that's going to add that over into the bottom right-hand corner. So using parameters, using actions, using functionality that is built into Tableau, and basically creating a sort of a hack has really provided an ability for me to come in and define something that's very informative for my stakeholders and very interactive, because as of today, I might care about a line chart for these particular items. However, the bar chart might be important. I might want to dig in on what the business thinks needs to go into that bar chart. So the dashboard is very reliant on understanding the business needs, what is important to them for each of these metrics. And as they change their desires for what's a default view, you change the parameters, you change the default parameters, you change one data source. So I have a secondary data source that drives the default parameters. We'll go show you that. Because parameters are agnostic to data sources, you can set it to where you've got your default view line up. You can set it to where they come in and they've got these different variables here. We'll view data here. So you just see in this one, you've only got 4 rows. Hopefully it didn't go into another, there we go. So you have 4 rows or 5 rows. I take that back. You have 5 views. And each of these come in here and you've got the different view and it lines up with the other data source, but I'm not blending, I'm just doing selection. So it's a really cool way to make it dynamic and use the functionality of Tableau. So going back to the deck. So let's see about the pros and cons of this dashboard. Well, one, each window group needs 9 worksheets. In this current definition, there are 9 worksheets to work. Okay, so what does that mean? I have a worksheet defining the title, the chart type, the category, the subcategory, the actual chart. So I've got 3 different charts that I've predefined in there: line, bar, table, time frame, right? So I've got things in there. It's a lot. You know, if you look at the actual workbook, which is free to download, anybody can download. Everything in my public profile is able to be downloaded. You can see how many worksheets I've got in this workbook. I've named them. I've been very specific on how to name them. Oops, go back. Go back over here. I was very specific on how I named them, what I named them, etc., to be intuitive and help drive this. But you know, think about the pros and cons. Pros is I own 100% of this layout. I can define that through the tool. I can define it through actions. I can do all that stuff. Now, the cons is if they decide, oh, I want to change the way that the line charts are formatted. I want to do this. I want to do that. I have to go through multiple iterations of each of those worksheets to make sure I make the same exact change. If they say the line's too thick on this line, I have to go back and make those line changes to all those worksheets. It's just a lot. Pros and cons. I still see the pros of this being much more beneficial than the cons. Well, Also, another thing is that predefined chart types and options. So if somebody puts in a chart type called tomato, yeah, the word tomato is going to show up. You'll have a T in there, but it'll just be a shape. You'll have no ability to show anything because there's no workbook or no worksheet, sorry, that is aligned to it. So the pros of that is I let the end users define their source. If they don't care about a table at all about their data, they don't have to add a table definition. If they don't want bar charts, they don't have to add bar chart definitions. You keep it in there and what's important for you. Cons is it does break if they add a new chart type or if they misspell line, right? If they misspell table, there are things that can potentially break because of how we do that. Again, thinking about this, the pros on oops, the pros are much more, in my opinion, outweighing the cons. So switching the views resets the default parameters per view. This is an amazing thing for us to be able to control what the end users are experiencing, how they experience it, and personify what their experience is. So if I know who you are and I know what group you are, I can say, well, when Will Perkins logs in, he doesn't care about this overall view. He cares about this other thing. I'm going to make the Will Perkins view without him having to save this something. I know what he's looking for. So the pros is letting each business define their default views, kind of each end user, the persona. But the cons is some of that becomes tribal knowledge to where you have somebody new come in, they might not realize the flexibility, and then they just accept the fact that they open up the dashboard, they go and they change their different things. They don't realize they can make that a default view if they just talk to us. So they don't realize flexibility. The dashboard is truly a data-driven dashboard. When I talk about the importance of building data-driven dashboards, most people say, well, of course, Tableau can't create data, so Tableau is always a data-driven dashboard. But the way that I phrase that is using the data to tell better stories and to make it more dynamic and make it more useful for the end user to build in that personification. So the pros is we can update metrics, we can update categories, we can update sorting, we can do all of that stuff without even opening up the workbook. It's a huge benefit, huge value. The cons is if we add a new metric, add a new subcategory, add a new thing like that, you might have too many labels in an area. So you want to be cognizant of use cases because some people might say, well, everything is important. And if everything is important, nothing is important. So how do we really do that balance? You might create a bad user experience if you add a ton of items because on the P&L side, if you have 50 items, it's 50 rows, you might get squished down because dashboard's only so big, right? So you have to think about those things. Again, I think the pros definitely outweigh the cons in this area. So looking at the requirements review and as looking at kind of how the dashboard is, what did we deliver? The requirements to design the P&L, we made that. We made it to the P&L to fill the finances needs. We had 6 interactive charts and choices. We made the design intuitive, interactive, check mark there. It's dynamic to allow for changes for us to do things on the fly, literally just push out updated data. We have different default views for different groups. All of these things, we were able to suffice those requirements. It was a huge win. And thank y'all for coming. If y'all want, follow me on social media. So I'm on X, LinkedIn, Tableau Public. Of course, I do not have a single consistent username across any platform. So you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And that's what I got. So
Thank you. Thank you, Will, for sharing all the best practices of creating such dynamic executive dashboards. Uh, I think in my career with Tableau for the last 10 years, I have not seen a dashboard like that. So thanks a lot for sharing in the community. And literally, it's a learning for us to go ahead and do a reverse engineering. I have a question for you, though. Do you test these dashboards before releasing it to your stakeholders?
no, I'm perfect. I know that everything I build is perfect. It will never break and it'll always be correct.
Okay.
Just kidding.
So, so
but yes, to
what
answer your
comes to
question,
you?
to answer
Yeah.
your question, we do have testing, and we do have things that we validate with our business users, right? So when you think about a dashboard solution, you have to work with your business users, especially if you're not in the business, if you're kind of like a support group. You don't know all the nuances, so you have to know what is important. When I look at this number, is this correct? Am I looking at it in the right context? Am I like, so there's a lot of partnership there, and you have to test a lot of different scenarios. They might look at this on a quarterly basis, even though you have monthly available. They care about quarterly, so we go and we look and filter down to the quarterly aspect.
But let me also give you an analogy and ask you, right, what comes to your mind when you see the below pictures? And I'm sure you might be thinking, what's the relation between an ice cream and trying out a new wine? And
Yeah,
let me tell, yeah,
I would say it's new experiences, because that looks like something that I'm trying. You're trying out a perfume, so that's like maybe it's a little tester. Yeah, it looks like you're doing a wine flight, so maybe you're trying different variations of wine. Those ice creams look really good, especially because I don't like chocolate and I don't see any chocolate in that picture. So that looks really good. So yeah.
so we as human beings, whenever we go ahead and make decision, as you said that for life experience also, we go ahead and test these things, right? And that is something we all do. So if you're trying a new ice cream, you have to go ahead and test it before you do that. The same goes with our business intelligence content also. We must test it before we go ahead and release to production. But what happens when we don't test our BI content? I'm sure you might be familiar with all these messages, right? Business reaching out to you saying that I want a dashboard in the next 30 minutes. I don't go ahead and trust the data. My export to Excel is not working. Do you get messages like this? Perfect. So let me help you over here, Will, and talk about a solution which will help you to go ahead and test executive dashboards. So let me introduce you to Wisdom Ops for Tableau. So Wisdom Ops for Tableau will automate your business intelligence testing and streamline your analytics governance workflow, helping you minimize risk exposure and build trust in data and analytics. Wisdom is a no code solution, which means that anyone can go ahead and create a comprehensive test to test their data visualizations, which are 100% accurate and comply with your business and regulatory requirements. In addition, Wisdom accelerates your regression testing for database migration, Tableau upgrades, and Tableau server to cloud migration. And regardless of the scenario, it will go ahead and catch all the errors in development and proactively in production before it becomes a costly mistakes for your organization. Lastly, once you have gone ahead and done the testing, Wisdom automates your content promotion and certification and deliver trusted analytics at scale. So Will talked about this particular dashboard over here. It's a dynamic dashboard for an executive. So Will, let me go ahead and accept this challenge and test this dashboard for you. So, and the way we will go ahead and test this dashboard is by breaking it into four parts. So, as Will talked about it, there are four pieces to this dashboard. The first piece is how you will go ahead and validate the dashboard in terms of the filters, like going ahead and selecting the regions in terms of national, east, or central. The second part over here is to go ahead, select the PNL summary in terms of time interval, and also to go ahead and validate the data. Third, we will go ahead and validate the most complex part of the dashboard in which you can go ahead and select any four subcategories over here. And lastly, we will go ahead and talk about how you can certify and decertify your content. So let's go ahead and get started. I will just open Wisdom Ops for Tableau. So this is Wisdom Ops for Tableau. So Wisdom Ops for Tableau, you can see over here on your left-hand side, we have these 5 test types. So in our latest version, 2023.4, we have released Tableau extract testing, which means that now you can go ahead and perform validations on your published extracts. You can go ahead and also test your extract in terms of refresh cycle. Functional testing, this is something we will go ahead and talk about in detail today, but this is something you can go ahead and test out your filters, parameters, marks against expected result. Regression testing, if you're going ahead and created something in development and you want to go ahead and check for QA or production, you can go ahead and do a regression testing just for an apple to apple matching in terms of your dashboard. Cross environment testing, if you're migrating from Tableau server to Tableau Cloud and you want to make sure everything is perfect, you can use cross-environment testing. And lastly, don't forget about the executive dashboards. Like Will talked about the dashboard over here. Before releasing the dashboard, we should all do a stress testing just to make sure it never breaks when it reaches the executive. So let's go ahead and start with the first one, which was over here to go ahead and choose the view. You can see I have already gone ahead and created a functional test over here. And just for the session purpose, I have gone ahead and breaking all these tests into three different types over here, or three different tests. You can go ahead and create a consolidated test over here. So let's go ahead and start with the first one, which was to go ahead and choose your view. So what I will do, I will go ahead and enter the information, give a name to the test. What is the test over here, a description. Once this is done, I will now go ahead and start creating or adding tasks in terms of my pipeline or flow, how exactly I want this particular dashboard to be tested. And you can see over here, I have these different task types. You can go ahead and select the way you want to go ahead and test the dashboard. So you can see I have over here, log into Tableau, open with, I can go ahead and set filters. If I want to go ahead and select parameters. Also, if I have marks in my dashboard, I can go ahead and select that. Also, I can go ahead and publish it to the Tableau over here. So what I'm doing over here, I'm literally going ahead and creating a flow that I want Wisdom Ops for Tableau to follow. So I'm logging into my Tableau server. Once this is done, I'm asking it to go ahead and open the Wiz, which is our Will Perkins challenge dashboard. And then I'm asking it to go ahead and select the mark over here. And you can see over here, I have gone ahead and defined the value as central. And lastly, I'm going ahead and asking it to replace that central value with national, just to make sure everything is working. What I will do now, I will just go ahead and click on run test. And you can see my hands are in the air. The test is running. And in a moment of time, you will go ahead and see Wisdom Ops for Tableau will open a browser and it will start opening that particular dashboard over here. So, and you can see over here, it has started opening the dashboard. And just think about it, right? In the meantime, it is opening. I can imagine everyone can relate to it. Some of us have to get up 3 or 4 in the morning just to make sure our dashboard is opening before the executive team can go ahead and see it. I think now for you, you can go ahead and use Wisdom Ops for Tableau to go ahead and automate it and have a good night sleep over here. So you can see over here, it has gone ahead and opened the dashboard. This is the same dashboard which Will talked about it. So once the dashboard will open, you will see the next thing it will go ahead and do. It will select and change the filter over here. So right now it is national. And just like that, it will go ahead and change this to central. So you can see now it has gone ahead and selected central over here. And again, it will go ahead and select back to national. So now we can double check in terms of, yes, the filters are working. I can go ahead and select others also. Once this is done, a report will be generated and I can just come back over here and I can see the detailed report, what has happened in terms of it. You can see I had 3 tasks which I have created and it is giving me the time over here in terms of what time the report has taken and then what was the status of it. And you can see everything worked. I can just click over here and I can see how things have gone and I can see everything works for me. So now I will move to the next part, which was I want to ensure my profit and loss summary, whether it's accurate or not. Just to go back to the dashboard over here, this is the view we will go ahead and test now. So one thing over here we have is a time interval. And the other thing which we have is the KPIs, which we also want to validate. So going back to Wisdom Ops for Tableau, I will go to my second test type. Again, over here, I have gone ahead and created my flow of tasks, starting with I wanted to log into Tableau, open the Wiz. Now I'm asking it to go ahead and select the time interval as quarterly. Once it has gone ahead and selected a time interval as quarterly, I am also going ahead and doing an assert data rules just to validate the data. Over here, what I'm checking is that I'm not getting any null values, just to make sure I'm getting all the data in the view when I'm going ahead and selecting the time interval. Again, then I'm asking it to go ahead and select yearly over here in terms of time interval, checking the data and validating it that there are no nulls, and finally coming back to the monthly value and checking it, the data is accurate. For the time purpose over here, I will not go ahead and run it. I will just directly jump on to the result, which we have already run it for you. And you can see over here, this is a consolidated report, which you will get in terms of how it was able to go ahead and test the individual task which we have created. And I can just go ahead and click on any one of them just to understand what has happened over here. So it is as easy as that, and you will get a consolidated information, which you can then go ahead and audit it over here. So once this is done, I will jump to the last part, which is one of the complex part of the dashboard, as Bill said that. And what now we want to go ahead and do is that I want to go ahead and select any 4 subcategories, which will then I can go ahead and interact with the 4 windows which we have on the right hand side over here. So again, let's go ahead and jump into Wisdom Ops for Tableau. The last one over here, I have defined my task or the flow of it, starting with logging to Tableau and opening the Wiz. And then over here, I'm literally going ahead and interacting with the parameters. So you can see, as Bill said, that there are 4 parameters. I'm going ahead and selecting those value over here. So this is my select window. I'm going ahead and selecting the value over here, followed by the chart, followed by your category, which I want to go ahead and do that. And lastly, by the time frame, which I have want to do that over there. Once this is done, what I'm doing, I'm literally going ahead and interacting with the 4th window over here. And just to show it to you, coming back, I'm going and interacting with this particular window over here, just to check, yes, my time interval is working. The different chart types like the bar, line, and the text table is working over here. So this is something I'm going ahead and testing. Yes, go ahead and select a different time interval, which is your sales and profit. Again, go ahead and check that you are not getting any null. Once that is done, I want you to go ahead and select the bar chart. Once you have selected that, I want you to go ahead and select the text table, which is your year over growth percentage. And once that is done, I want you to go ahead and do the table. So this is something I have gone ahead and created the flow. Again, directly jumping back to the report, just to show it to you how you will get it over here. So you can see you will get a consolidated report in terms of how it was able to go ahead and select all the 4 different subcategories. I can just open it over here and I can see all the 4 subcategories over here, which it was able to go ahead and select. Also, if I want to go ahead and select something like, okay, was it be able to go ahead and select the text over here in terms of the table? And you can see it was able to go ahead and select in the chairs, the text table over here. So just like that, it was able to go ahead and validate, yes, everything in my dashboard is working. The users are able to go ahead and select different subcategories. Lastly, once this is done, how I can make sure my business user doesn't reach back to me and ask me whether this particular dashboard is tested or not. Yes, I can go ahead and answer them in the chat. I can go ahead and respond to emails. But just think about it. You have 100 dashboards. You can't do it for all these dashboards over here. So I'm excited to announce one of our latest feature in Wisdom Ops for Tableau. And this is called your post-process actions. And now you can go ahead and certify your dashboards. You heard it right. You can go ahead and certify your dashboards dynamically. So what you have to do, once you have gone ahead and created your functional test, you will directly jump to dashboard certification, enable the dashboard certification over here, download our extension. And once that is done, you will go ahead and configure it with respect to certification ID and details. And once this is done, you will go ahead and run the dashboard. Once the dashboard run and it is successful, you will see what will happen, a dashboard like this. And you can see on the right hand side over here, it says that the dashboard is certified. If something happens in your dashboard, something is broken over here, then you will go ahead and see that the dashboard is not certified automatically, and you will go ahead and get a trigger in terms of something is wrong in your dashboard, and then you can go ahead and work on it. So this is something I just wanted to share with you, how you can go ahead and test dashboards like these with Wisdom Ops for Tableau. Jumping back to the deck. So what are the next steps for you? Challenge us. Go ahead and find an executive dashboard in your organization, and let's validate it together. Go ahead and scan this QR code. You can download Wisdom Ops for Tableau, and with that, you will be able to go ahead and test your most complex dashboards. So I think we still have time. If there is anything you want to share, Will, in terms of your executive dashboards, anything with the community you think we should go ahead and talk about more?
There's not much I can wrap up this. So this is an interesting thing, right? Obviously, like this is a wisdom presentation. I think what y'all showcased is something that was new to me. When I would hear automated testing, I was like, so does it go in and find the data, like find the parameters and update? Like I was really trying to understand, do we have to have particular objects? So the really cool thing that I was impressed with was being able to define the parameters, define those objects, define the actions in the tool, because those were things I haven't really seen on any automated testing. So, I did exactly what you just asked others to do, and I would suggest other people kind of reach out if you're curious about this and see how can it be your challenge and make it work.
Thank you, Will. I think with that, thanks a lot, Will, for sharing all your best practices, tips and tricks for creating dynamic executive dashboards. And as Will said that, the dashboard is available on his Tableau public profile. Go ahead, download it, do reverse engineering, and learn from it. And I think that is something which we all can go ahead and take an advantage of. So with that, thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. It was a pleasure to have you, Will, on this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.